Welcome to the Financial Planners South Africa podcast, a show dedicated to driving the positive evolution of financial advice, specifically in South Africa. To join a global community of financial advisors, sharing and learning with one another to drive the positive evolution of financial advice, head to xyadvisor.com. Portfolio Metrics is thrilled to bring you this podcast in support of our common passion, people, and the evolution of wealth management. Our global business links precision investment management to expert financial advice through partnerships and technology. Portfolio Metrics is an authorized financial services provider. AssetMap is a proud sponsor of this podcast. Are you looking for the next big thing in advisor technology? AssetMap is used by thousands of financial advisors to help create more meaningful conversations with clients. See for yourself how AssetMap is leading the next phase of financial advice delivery. Learn more at asset-map.com/Louis for a special listeners discount. This episode is proudly brought to you by Alan Gray. They say it's important to live for today. Although that might be true, we can't forget to plan for tomorrow. There's a lot of it left, after all. Alan Gray is an authorized financial services provider. Visit www.alangray.co.za to learn how we build long-term wealth for clients. Welcome to another episode of Financial Planners South Africa. Today I have with me in the studio Wouter de Witt. Wouter is a certified financial planner and has been working with Liberty Life for a numerous amount of years. We also have a special relationship where we talk about financial planning and how things evolve every 2 weeks on a one-on-one basis. Wouter, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Louis. Nice to be here.
Wouter, it's wonderful to have you here in the studio today. Give our listeners a little bit of a background of how you got into financial services world.
Yeah, sure. So I've been in the financial planning industry for about 10 years. Studied at Stellenbosch University. Actually studied financial planning. I remember we were one of the first few graduates that actually started in the financial planning subjects at Stellenbosch University before it became postgrad, or we did the postgrad afterwards. So I think it was almost a natural progression that I do move into the financial space. Always been interested in finances, financial planning, and now actually get paid doing it. So I love it.
Why did you pick financial planning when selecting your modules at university?
Yeah, to be honest, and myself and my business partner, we always joke about that because we actually studied together at university, is when the lecturer actually explained financial planning, it sounded like this ideal world. But being young and naive, we don't really understand what financial planning really is until you start doing it. So it was actually almost by mistake. My father is a advocate, and I actually wanted to go into the lawyer type route, changing that with law and finance, and then actually turned out to be exactly that by accident. So now I do work a lot with financial planning, but also obviously financial planning has a big legal and tax aspect to it. So really worked out perfectly.
You mentioned your business partner also studied at the same time, and it's interesting how we form these deep connections during our years where we study. When you say business partner, it's something that people don't often recognize within financial planning, specifically working for a company like Liberty Life. How did that relationship come about, and how did you guys formalize it to become business partners?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. So it's not formalized in a way where independent brokerage is formalized, where you split profits and those type of things. But it's more formalized in that we have a working relationship together. We work together each on our own financial planning practices. But if something should happen to us, we do have buy and sell agreements in place. So it's a partnership in that regard. And then how it got about is actually because we studied together, it was almost a natural transition. I went directly into Liberty, and he came a year afterwards because he finished his postgrad first. And yeah, we actually build financial technology programs together. So he's my business partner on that as well. So yeah, that's how it happened.
I'm really looking forward to us having a conversation about, the financial planning technology, and we'll get to that in a minute. I'm curious, the decision behind joining a larger, tied agency like Liberty, how did that go, and what other options were you considering? Specifically thinking of people listening to this that might say, what do I do when I want to get into, the financial advice delivery? Um, Tell us a little bit about how what the options were and how you made your decisions.
Yeah, that's a good question, Lou. And I'm actually a very big advocate for starting financial planners, especially junior financial planners, on a salary based structure. Reason being, myself, my business partner, and maybe 5 or 6 other guys in our team, all started with a salary structure for 4 years, and after that, you moved over to a commission or fee based practice. And I keep on telling people and junior financial advisors that I see that I would not have been in the industry if it wasn't for that. So I'm a big advocate for that. And I know a lot of insurance companies have a salary-based package, but they also have the direct package. And it's difficult to start a practice. And so if you're starting, I would always recommend start with a salary-based practice. So you can just find your feet, see if it's really something that you like to do, and then move over. So when I started, I had a few options, and I'm a bit of conservative in nature. I had a bit of study loans and things when I finished. So I started on the financial planning salary structure, and then slowly but surely moved over and built my business so that I can move off a salary structure. So that's, yeah, like I said, I'm a big advocate for that because that also enhances professionalism, because that's how accountants and all of CAs, all of this, so they start with salary and then slowly transition into taking on bigger projects and doing revenue sharing. So that's my view.
Wouter, you mentioned something interesting there, saying that, you're conservative by nature. And I often wonder how the way we show up to our clients, how our own risk tolerance, our own way of thinking about investing in financial options, how do you think that affect your relationship, specifically if you're dealing with a client that might be very aggressive? Do you think it has an impact, or is it really, we take our own hats off and we, put ourselves in the client's shoes?
Again, another good question, Lou, and I've actually been reflecting a lot on that because we as financial planners need to be objective. And initially, it almost bothered me a lot where almost clients, I would give advice and they would not always take the advice, and I almost took that personally. And so I think after being in the industry for 10 years, I realized that you have to meet clients in the middle. You can't force your opinions on them or your risk tolerance on them. And some people are more risk averse, and some people aren't. So I think, be objective but with a bit of experience. I think that taught me to be more objective and give my opinion. And there's also structures in place for certain reasons. I think as you move along in the industry, you'll realize soon that certain clients has to be in certain positions. And I think the big thing with that being, you always have to look at the client themselves. If you spend time with the client, you'll easily realize what their knowledge base looks like. And then I'll from at that point decide how aggressive or how conservative, but also how almost pushy I need to be with that client to tell him that, I know you want to go 100% equities, but this is the only money you have, and maybe we must look at a bit more conservative. So yeah, I think being straight with the client, being objective, and then giving you advice in the end, you can only recommend. They'll have to take their own advice, or take your advice or not take your advice.
I like that. And it's almost a spectrum. You can say, okay, for this client, I need to be a little bit more assertive. And for this one, I can dial it back. Dr. Moira Summers talks about advice that sticks in her book, and just, being able to deliver advice where people actually take action, because that's a big problem in our industry. We can spend the whole day just giving advice, and if no one takes it, what is the value of that? What was the early kind of roles that, helped craft the way you deliver advice? You spoke about having a fixed base salary and how that's helped. What are the other structures that companies put in place to help you be a successful financial planner?
Yeah, I think it's quite difficult initially to almost build a practice. And most insurance companies, they work towards almost certain, I don't want to call it targets, but certain goals that you have to achieve. And initially it's something difficult to cope with, but those goals or targets are actually put there for a reason, because then you follow the natural path to get to a successful business. And I've mentored a few junior financial planners, and that's sometimes a big headache for them to almost think, okay, they have to achieve that certain amount in a year. But I think if you change your way of thinking around that and actually say, this is what I need to achieve to get to my business goals in 3 or 4 or 5 years, that helps me a lot. So I do think most companies, they have a certain set of rules that you have to follow. And if you should follow these rules, you will be successful as a financial planner, but also as your clients would be successful. Because, for example, I know I need to do a certain amount of new investment, and sometimes I have to phone a client and follow up, and where's your investment? And we talked about this, and it comes across maybe sometimes as salesy, but in the end, if I can just take a real example of this week, I had to follow up with a client, but he had 5 million just sitting in cash. He already had a tax problem, could find a much better structure for him, and it's needed. So I agree with your point that sometimes it is needed to follow up with a client. And how do you actually get to the point where they follow your advice without you coming across that you almost selling them, if I can say it like that? Because other big thing I normally tell my clients is, remember, me pushing you and saying, come on, let's do financial planning, let's work towards the goal. It's not me trying to, again, sell you something, but it's me trying to motivate you, encourage you, because when you get, for example, to 65 and you want to retire, you're only going to be angry at me and said, Wouter, why didn't you over the last 30 years tell me that I'm in big trouble? So I think it's a big mind shift thing. And yeah, you need to keep that mind shift strong, positive, because that does filter through to clients.
It's a very difficult balance. I was reading an article yesterday about where a client of a financial planner passed away. In the last 3 years, he spent almost all his money on medical expenses. And the children said to the financial planner, why didn't you help our dad? You were the financial planner. Why didn't you do a better job? And I think sometimes we have this weight, and specifically me, I feel like, you're responsible for client's outcome. But what you're saying is that you can actually use that positively to say, okay, we have these milestones to grow our business. We know what we need to achieve. And at the same time, we're helping our clients. Tell me about the times when it's really difficult. When I'm sure you might have a story where you decided, okay, I want to change careers. Is there something like that? Because it seems like every guest have had something similar.
Yeah, yes. I in my third year, actually, and I don't even think I've ever told you the story, but in my third year, I've been in the business for a while, so I've started to understand investments, and I actually got an offer from an investment company to come and be an investment specialist with them. And at that stage, it was almost double my salary. So what 23, 24-year-old would not almost jump to the opportunity. But concurrently, I got into a big retrenchment company that did a lot of retrenchments, and I started to add a lot of value to those clients' retrenchments, and had to preserve their funds or to retire from their funds. And it actually came at this perfect time, because if that didn't happen, I probably would have jumped into another part of our finance and not stayed as a financial planner. And after that, it actually changed my career completely. So yes, things work out like they need to work out.
The author of Radical Focus talks about golden eggs, and there's these golden eggs that come past you, and we want to chase the golden eggs. And it's wonderful to hear that you actually said, what, this doesn't align with my vision of the future, and I'm going to stick at it. We see this big trend of people talking about cutting out the intermediaries, clients going directly, be it through default preservation, in-fund annuitization. Do you see that in practice, that clients think that they don't need advice? Or is there something else happening?
Yeah, definitely. We do see that often. And me personally, a few years, actually 5 or 6 years ago, we were sitting at a conference, and was a London actuary speaking about where the future is and what jobs won't be there. And actually said in that presentation that financial advisors won't have a job in 5 years because of automated and robo-advice and all that. I think that was in 2015, so about 6 or 7 years ago. And at that stage, I got quite a big fright to understand that. And yes, we've seen that happen. And at that stage, I actually overreacted completely, and I went to go build a whole direct robo-advisor with my business partner. And that's actually also worked out well, because that was the start of my fintech career. So yes, we do see people going directly, but maybe in 2015, I didn't believe what I understand now to be true, that yes, there will always be clients that go direct, but most clients need us as financial planners to guide them. And they maybe don't need as much guidance, especially the smart clients and the financial savvy clients don't need as much guidance as before because of the wealth knowledge that's online. But they sometimes they just need almost a soundboard. So my top clients, they would even make their own portfolio recommendations and change it, but they would need me as a sounding board to say, do I agree with it? Do I do this? And then in times of market difficulty and people invading other countries, then it's quite important to just give them peace of mind and say, remember, this is what normally happens. Stay true to your goal. So I think it's, yes, financial guidance, but also just a bit of emotional support to clients. So there are people that go direct, but I do think there's still a massive, massive role for financial planners in the future. Yeah. Or at least the people aspect of it.
Wouter, I completely agree with you. And, as you mentioned this week, we saw Russia starting to invade Ukraine. How do you react to these headlines? Just personally, how do you keep yourself grounded and, telling your client, hey, stay invested? Because we all know that's the thing that we should do. But how do you keep yourself reminded? Like, what are the practical things that you do? And let's maybe take this week as an example. Yeah, I'm sure you felt the same fear, saying, okay, should we be panicking or do we just stay the course?
Yeah, and you say like almost what steps do you take with your clients? But I would even say that same philosophy is with yourself. I almost have arguments with myself the whole time, especially after the COVID pandemic. Why didn't I invest more when the market was low? So it's something that you do have to go look at history, and this is nothing. COVID was maybe a black swan event, but everything has happened before. It recovers. People are very resilient. Businesses are resilient. Remember, at the top of a business, there's people managing and changing it. So sometimes they need to understand there's not only just an equity or portfolio, but there's actually portfolio managers behind that portfolio. There's business owners. Take a big bank or a big listed top 40 company. There's management teams constantly changing that. And I do think that's just, don't panic, stay the course. And I always argue that us as financial planners, we might be smart and implement things, but there's always people much smarter than us, much higher up, making the few bigger decisions, and I trust them.
That's such a great response, and it's something we often forget, that we invest in businesses, and you're part of you own part of that small business, and there's people working at it. Never mind the bigger picture on the stock market, and getting your clients excited and getting them on board. Have you seen big emotional responses in the last couple of years? We've had COVID, we have wars, we had the global financial crisis. What stands out for you in terms of client behavior?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've seen a few irrational decisions where clients just move completely to money market or completely out of the market, and that never actually works out, because it's that old financial planning graph: greed and fear. Greed, you always want to make the most, and fear, you don't want to lose any money, and that does dictate. Almost, it's emotional. We make decisions emotionally. We can think logically about things, but the emotional decision making is a part of our brain. We can't make decisions without emotions. So I have seen a few bad things, unfortunately, where clients would move out of the market exactly at that time where it's low, and then move in exactly when it's high. But I think that's the role of us, not trying to time the market and just getting clients to stay invested, because over any period of time, we always see a recovery. And like we said, it's with the businesses. So yeah, I think it's sometimes difficult for us to not be emotional as financial planners and not get wrapped up into it. And I've actually seen myself actually be less emotional when times are bad and when clients get emotional, because then I know I have to take this leadership position and say, no, this is not what we decided. Let's move forward. Let's stay strong. And so far, it's worked out with the recovery each time. I've only been in the industry for 10 years. So I've only seen 2 or 3. So yeah, hopefully everything goes good going forward.
That's so true. The only thing we can guarantee is that at some point you will lose money. Anything else will hopefully turn out well. Tell me about those conversations, when you're pushing back and you're saying, okay, Mr. Client or Mrs. Client, this is the right thing. We know it's the right thing. What happens if they are too forceful and, they come back quite aggressively? At what point do you back off? Because I find that that's, it can be a tricky balance.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think sometimes what I've also realized is by being too pushy, sometimes you also get the wrong result. So you must, in my opinion, try and be objective, give your opinion, and then pose it to them. I'm just here to give you all the facts or as much information as possible. In the end, you need to make the decision. And by it's that old saying of, the more you want someone to do something, the more they don't want to do it. And if you actually tell them, okay, it's fine, we've listened and we've decided, they'll actually say, okay, but why is he going this route, and actually would want to go opposite. So I think we as people are wired quite uniquely. Yeah, sometimes I think it's good not to be too pushy, because then you'll actually get a better result. But in the end, it is the client's decision. And then you then have to think out of a compliance point of view, make sure as a financial planner, you've documented everything, explain to them, like, listen, this is my recommendation. But in the end, you decide to go a different route. And that does happen. And then we also have to protect our businesses and documenting it properly.
Wouter, you've spoken now quite a bit about, how we become that client's partner in making decisions. Yet when we look at our training as financial planners, historically, there's been very little training around, human decision making and these type of conversations that we've had to have with clients day to day. What are the tools and resources that you rely on to help you build these skills? Or is it really just, gaining that through experience, reflecting on conversations and just trying to show up better?
Yeah, I think it's in a combination of things. And if I have to take more specific tools that I use, is I always try to just put myself in a client's shoes and how I like, for example, my accountant to react with me, how I like any actually consumer, how a consumer reacts with other people, with other businesses. So my big thing is I'm very big on communication. And it's sometimes as small as I have a few communication methods, but I have a monthly newsletter that goes out to clients. And I have a weekly market update going out to clients just on WhatsApp. So I do a broadcast list for about 220 of my clients. And there I just give them a quick breakdown of what happened in the week, what's going on in the markets, what's the rand against the dollar, etc., etc. And I do think that gives them a bit of peace of mind sometimes as well, just to know that, don't worry, our financial planner is there, he's sending me things and he's being there. So I do think it is good to have these tools in place to communicate to clients, because if you communicate to clients, then they almost gain more confidence in you. And then, as you mentioned, they will almost automatically start following your advice, because as clients, they know, okay, he's reading up, he knows what's going on, he's reassuring me. And then I get to clients sometimes and they think, and they'll tell me, but yeah, I don't even want to make decisions. Just do what you think is right. And that's sometimes a good pat on the shoulder, because they know the trust is there. So yeah, I do think communication is key when working with clients.
I want to unpack a little bit this kind of weekly update around what's happening in the market. Do you find that puts the focus on very short-term movements, or does it give you an opportunity to reframe what's going on in the news?
Yeah. So the big thing, what I do with that is I won't go in too much detail in terms of what your specific portfolio has done, or it will just be a general, almost good news, market, finance related update. And what I found is that it's just nice for clients sometimes to reference back to that, just to say, but look here, this week this happened. So it's not to create panic. It's actually to prevent panic, to know that this is what's going on. I do put all the facts in, but I do try to keep it positive. Telling them the good news stories, telling what's going on in the market, this week's budget, did a quick recap on the budget. And just, it was a good budget. It was a good, positive budget. It's the best one we've had in years. And it's good for clients to know that, because I do think, like we said, it's emotional. And if clients are positive and they're thinking things go positive, then it goes better with them as well. Because in the end, like you said, it's most things are out of our control. Markets, the finances, the equity markets, Putin invading Ukraine. So I do think it is important, that communication aspect, and keeping it positive and keeping a healthy mindset for your clients.
I love how you touch on these things that, like you're saying, it's the things that we can control. And if we look at the research, client communication is up there in terms of why clients leave. They tend to leave when there's little communication, or their expectations are misaligned with what's happening and they don't know what's going on. I want to touch on a subject that might be a little bit more difficult to navigate, and that's losing a client. Tell me about, the time when clients might have moved to another advisor, or you're up against another advisor and you lose out on that business. How does that affect you personally, and what does that do in terms of you looking at your business?
Yeah, Louis, I think as you grow in this business, I think your skin also hardens a little bit, because initially I took it very hard that if I didn't get a new client, or if I lost a client, but over the years, it almost builds up that people's circumstances change. People move away. They build new relationships with you. We don't maybe touch base as often. And also new people comes into their lives. So to be honest, I don't take it personally anymore if I do lose a client. I am very specific when I move a client, when a client moves away from me, that I do explain to them that sometimes it's better. But if I do see it's not better, and there's not good advice given, I am an advocate for our industry, trying to keep it professional, and I am quite hard up on if I see there wasn't good advice given. Not as much with the client, but I will follow up with the advisor and actually explain to them that, listen, if you want to take over this investment, or take over this policy, you're more than welcome. But please don't just switch it or churn it to generate commission. And I think that's a big step for us as advisors to take. Because my personal feeling about, I've also taken over clients from other advisors, and I think sometimes we as advisors take it personally from other advisors that we are now stealing their client or anything like that. Sometimes the fit is just better. And so when I do have a conversation with another advisor, and even if sometimes a client moves away from me, I'll try really to keep it not hostile, in the sense of, okay, I can see maybe the advice is not even better, but I can still see you have a better relationship with the client. So let me help you move over this client to you. Because I feel that us as financial planners, we sometimes take it so personally, and we almost want to, what's going on? Why are you stealing my client? And that just creates such a bad reputation for our industry. And I do think to keep it professional, rather try and help out each other. Because, for example, what happened with one advisor, I actually he took over a client from mine, and I phoned him, and we actually had such a great talk about the client and about what's going on, and we actually started working on something else together, me and the advisor. So sometimes advisors will be hostile just because you're being hostile with them, and I try really to enter into those conversations in an open mind, objectively, because I understand that we all need to make a living, we all trying to build a business, and sometimes it is just a better fit.
Thank you, Wouter. It almost makes me think of moving to another GP, where your GP is not going to phone that other GP and say, hey, why are you stealing my patient? I would almost expect them to phone the GP and say, hey, here's the client file. Here's the medical history. Yeah. Here's things that might be valuable. Because we almost have that onus of do no harm. We have a fiduciary standard, and
Exactly.
interestingly, it seemed like the fiduciary standard originated in South Africa, where we have to place our clients' interest first. I want to jump into the fintech side, which is a part that excites me and it excites you. Tell me how that relationship with your business partner that you met at university came about, and why it was that you started this robo-advisor.
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, I think the robo-advisor was started out of fear of me being 20, 25. I started when I was 21, not having a job in a few years, and I learned a lot from that project. And I would say the biggest thing that I learned from that project is that clients are willing to do things online, but they do need almost that personal aspect of a financial planner. So that is actually transitioned into other fintech ideas, and the one that we're currently working on with my business partner Emil van der Spey is that we built a simulation tool that directly integrates into SaaS that focuses on retirement planning. So in a nutshell, how it works is if you withdraw money from any retirement fund, a pension fund or a preservation fund, etc., as we know, the first 500,000 is tax-free when we retire, or the first 25,000 is tax-free when we leave employment. And us as financial planners, especially coming from university, we love doing those manual calculations and calculating what the tax would be. But we as financial planners don't know if there was previous withdrawals, if there's excess contributions, if there's an IT88, meaning that the client owes SARS money. And that's where this new financial or fintech project, Gravitas Tax, came about. And we actually integrated it into SARS. And all that you do now is you press a button, put in the client tax number, ID number, and then actually gives you the exact amount of tax that you pay. So that's been a massive help to my business. And we've currently have about 300 advisors on our platform, and we're expanding every day. That's been a big help for them as financial planners, for us as financial planners. And also, the most importantly, the client has been getting so much value out of it. And I always like to use my top client as an example. He has excess contribution because he earns so much. He over contributes more than 350,000 a year, and the excess contribution builds up. So when he retires, he actually doesn't have 500,000 tax free. He actually has over 4 million tax free. So yeah, it really adds value. If you can just think of that client, if he can take 4 million discretionary funds and the rest can be going to a compulsory annuity, his marginal tax rate will just be so much lower because he'll draw from the discretionary funds and draw from the living annuity fund. So it can really just add so much value to financial planners.
Definitely. As a user and subscriber of Gravitas Tax, it's made a massive difference in our business. I want to talk a little bit about, financial advisors selecting technology. There's this search for the holy grail, one piece of software that does everything perfectly well. Why hasn't that panned out? And why have we seen this adoption of kind of modular approach where you have hyper niche software providers like Gravitas Tax plugging into other providers or even maybe standing on its own? What's your take on why there hasn't been one truly successful financial planning software solution for advisors?
Yeah, it's actually something that I've been reflecting on for a long time. And I think it comes down to the jack of all trades. And I actually listened to a podcast the other day. The full saying is actually much further than jack of all trades. And it comes down to if you do something very well, yes, you can do a few things very well. But for us, if we just focus on doing simulations for Gravitas Tax, we do it very, very well. Doesn't mean we don't do our financial planning well. But I think the reason in the financial planning or fintech space to be able to do all aspects of financial planning in one software tool is near to impossible. You'll need to have a few billion rand to develop all this technology, and then you become an incumbent again, and then it becomes difficult. So I'm actually a big advocate for having a few different software programs. that does each its own little thing, and it does it well, because then you can specialize in what we do and improve that service. And also that's a different view. That's also the same thing in the asset manager. That's why we use models of different asset managers, because different people and different asset managers have different views. And the more we expand our views, the more we can actually grow not only our business, but ourselves. So yeah, I'm actually a big advocate for having a few different programs to enhance my financial planning business.
So it sounds like the key is staying small, staying nimble, but then really honing in, like you said, be the master of that piece and not the jack of all trades. For financial planners listening, what are the other tools that come to mind that you use on a daily basis that you might be able to share with us? And, for the record, it's not a plug, but really just sharing pieces of software that other people might be able to use.
Yeah, so the other, and that's not maybe even financial planning software, this is more just organizational skills, is I use Microsoft To Do, which is basically just a to-do list. And I can allocate it to other people. So, for example, I have a paraplanning staff, I have secretaries that does the admin, and I have junior financial advisors. And I can literally add almost to-dos to each one of their lists. They can make notes on that. So that has changed our business completely by just being organized. And if I can go back to our earlier point of clients, it's important to communicate to clients, but it's even more important to, if clients phone back, if they email you, email back. And that just helps a lot with the organization of that. Because if I need to do something, I'll put it on the reminder list and it will pop up on my screen. I need to do it today. So and it's difficult to manage that from, for example, in your calendar where I used to do it. It's just so much easier to allocate tasks. And then clients would sometimes ask me, but just how did you remember this? We spoke about this 6-7 months ago. And I said, I made a note on your file. I made a note on to do it, to follow up. And I do manage my team like that as well. And small things as well. WhatsApp business. It sounds basic things here, but WhatsApp business, that's also changed my business completely. And it's, if you have normal WhatsApp as an advisor, you literally just change it over to WhatsApp business. You can add a little profile pic and services and small things like that. And inside WhatsApp business, you can create auto replies. You can create broadcast lists. And yeah, that's quite beneficial, especially when you're out of the office seeing clients, and they'll send you a message, something that pops up and say, I'm just busy with a client, or like I said, the broadcast list I send out. So people always think you have to use this massive financial planning software. You don't. The everyday tools it's already built for businesses. We are business. And so I think those two tools is the tools that enhance my financial planning in terms of organizational skills by far.
Wouter, why does the task allocation and management not sit inside the CRM? I'm curious to hear why it is that you prefer this standalone, niche tool that only looks at tasks and allocation and not using your CRM for that.
Yeah, we looked into the CRM tool a while ago, and in my opinion, it was just a little bit archaic and almost too complex. There was too many fields that we have to complete, and that was exactly the same thing that we tried to do in Gravitas Tax. Keeping it simple, stupid. You just have 6 inputs and you'll be able to do a simulation. And that's the same thing with the to-do. I just have to enter one thing. It takes me 2 seconds. I used to have sticky notes all over my computer and everywhere, and that's basically how it works. It works like a little sticky note. So it doesn't have a secure login. I don't have to go through 2-factor authentication, then go into the client, then add a note. It's just boom, open it up and it's there. And it's obviously with Microsoft To Do, it's on your phone, it's on your laptop, it's going to be on your desktop, it can be an app, it can basically be anything. And for me personally, I try to be creative and try to look at new ideas and think of new ideas. So as I think about something, it's just boom, here's that note, I put it on and it's there. To explain it better, it's basically like the same as like a note on your phone, but it's just has a little reminder, little thingy with, and it has an organizational chart, a task, reminder. So it's a very basic tool that helps, and that's why I prefer not to do it inside my CRM.
They say a short pencil is better than a long memory. and just writing it down and knowing that, you can come back to it when a client speaks about it. And I like this fact that you're saying, hey, it should be on any device. And hopefully we'll see a Gravitas WhatsApp bot at some point where you can just give the information in, and, out comes the result. Tell me, what does the future of financial planning look like for someone that spends time, enjoys technology, but also engages with clients? What does this industry look like 10 years from now, in Wouter de Witt's opinion?
Yeah. So Louis, that's something I do spend a lot of time on thinking, and I even try to take breaks, so to go away completely from technology in the office and try to think of what I think the future looks like. So as I said earlier, I do think financial advice will always have a human aspect to it, but how that human aspect looks might change in the future. So my thinking behind it is, I think there will only be one person that will handle your finances in the future, an accountant or a financial planner that should be able to do your tax, should be able to give advice, should be able to open up a product for you, do your buy and sell agreement. So I think with technology enhancing and getting so much better with systems like QuickBooks, Xero, look at all the financial planning CRM that's out there. I think in the future, all of that's going to merge, and you're just going to have this one super financial professional that can basically handle everything for you. So that's what I'm building towards, where our financial planning technology, like you mentioned, on a modular space, can integrate into these type of tools, where financial planners can actually do everything for you. They can do tax, they can do, or even just work with an accountant, and you can do the financial planning space. So I do think financial planners and accountants would need to start working better together. And that is something that we're busy building for the future. It's maybe a bit early to say something about that, but hopefully after Gravitas Tax, we'll be launching something very, very interesting for the financial planning space, to actually pull together us as a profession, and actually to make our advice more professional, to not sell products, but to actually work on certain tax, certain principles, certain things that will actually hold the future.
Wouter, how does this differ from the family office units that we often see people talk about, where there's an element of tax advice, there's asset management, there might be real estate or property assistance, there's financial planning. How does this vision differ from what we're already seeing in the market in some segments?
I think the only thing that it really differs is the technology front. If you just look at a pre and post COVID environment, the way how we do business now and the way how we did business before then. Like this morning, I did a living annuity review in 18 minutes. And the client told me she's very busy, even though she's retired, she's very busy with her other business. And she prefers seeing me, she knows me for many years, so she prefers seeing me on Zoom. And I have my financial planning software open in front of her. I've got Gravitas open in front of her, so I can quickly do the calculations, and I can on the spot tell her what she needs to do for the next year, compared to having 2 or 3 face-to-face meetings, then doing calculations. So I think how this differs from the family practices is technology. And I think technology is going to keep on growing and getting better to the point where a lot of the functions that we used to do will get automated. And I'm all for that. I'm not for removing the financial aspect for it, but I'm removing all these meaning little tasks that we as humans do, so that we can actually enhance our practice. And by doing that, taking out tasks that takes lots of time obviously equals money. And in the end, you can actually, as a business, grow a much better, much more profitable business, and spending time on the things that make you money or make your business money. And in turn, save the client some funds, some costs, some additional fees, etc. One of my first managers always said, NIPAs, non-income producing activities. And that's so true. The more technology can work on those type of things, reducing the nippers, with the better we can run our financial planning practice, our tax practices. So I think it's just how it differs is technology will improve, it will keep on getting better, and we must just be an advocate or at least a first adopter of this technology and yes, go through the growing pains, but in that we will improve the technology and in turn improve our business.
It's wonderful how you manage to piece all of this together in the hyper-efficient financial advisor that spends time with clients and in front of clients delivering advice. And I'm wondering, does that mean the role of an admin assistant disappears? And if so, how do we retrain and, make our team members more efficient in other areas in the business?
Yeah, no, not at all. So I'm still an advocate for admin assistants, and I would say they are just a different, they have the same role as we have, but just on a different level. So yes, they might not, it might also improve their lives a lot. For example, that's actually another a software program that we use that absolutely changed our business, Quickly Sign. I have to give a shout out to Rob from Quickly Sign, which is, if he knew how much time he saved me and my financial planning business, he would write me a much bigger bill than the small fee I pay every month for Quickly Sign. But back on the admin assistants, I don't think the role for them will change, or it will change in the aspect of technology will improve their lives as well. But I do think they are also sometimes the front line in communicating to clients. And as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's quite important for them to have that almost interaction with a human, or be able to at least just know they can pick up the phone and there's someone there. And I actually spoke to a few financial planners that's almost deciding to get an admin assistant, and I'm a big advocate for getting admin assistant for two reasons. The service betters for your clients, and secondly, it actually motivates you to actually do some work, do some things that you've been procrastinating on. And the one financial advisor said, but I can actually do this myself. Yeah, you can. But if you know that admin assistant doesn't have work, you are going to go find a work. You're going to pick up the phone. You're going to see your clients. You're going to go meet your clients. So yes, I'm a big advocate for improving technology, but keeping the human aspect of it. And if I can tell you a great little story of, when I just started, I had a lady that started with me. She started with me when she was 60 years old, and she retired at 66. So then it was 6 years down the line with my practice. And I just phoned her the other day just to find out how it was going with her and all of that. And she said, no, it was going good. She actually went to go drink coffee with one of my clients. And I was like, oh, how do you mean? You retired? This is, I don't understand. And she said, no, they just started chatting over the phone and finding out how it was when she was working for me as admin to financial planner. And they just built a great relationship. And that just almost resonated with me, that how important that relationship aspect is for people. We, as people, need to work with other people. Yes, technology is there and robo-advisors and all of that is so important to enhance efficiency. But the human aspect is just as important.
I really like this idea of relationship managers in your business that's building a stronger relationship with your clients as a practice, and not just there to complete paperwork, because that's being automated. Shout out to Rob Curtis. Thank you for building Quickly Sign. We'll make sure that you get a copy of this episode. And these tools are out there, so don't be afraid to use them. And that's what we're hearing from people like yourself, Wouter, saying that use the tools that's already been built. These things aren't that difficult. And it's becoming part of your job. You need to know how to use these things. It's no longer an optional.
Yeah, definitely. And we keep on referring back to Rob, but it's something as small as just digitizing signatures that will actually just change your business and just get you away from those little non-income producing activities. And also I think the best thing with technology is that I sometimes don't appreciate how much technology helps until I actually sit with my team and my admin team, and they tell me that, sure, over the last 2 years after COVID, their work has become so much more almost fun because they don't have to do these meaningless admin tasks, and they actually can focus on giving good service to clients, replying quickly on emails, and getting the business out than sitting and filling in paperwork where everything can actually be digitized.
Wouter, it's wonderful to hear your passion for financial planning and the way you're innovating, not just the way you're delivering advice, but also thinking about the future. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. If people want to reach out to you and just maybe have a chat, what's the best way to get hold of you?
Yeah, they can anytime contact me. They can find me on the internet or Google. All our details will be there. Our practice would be there. They can Google Gravitas Tax. They'll find our website there. And like I mentioned, it will really enhance their business out of financial planning place. But yeah, reach out to us. We're always open because we're so passionate about the professional, and like Cobus Klein always says, passion for the profession, that actually we need to be advocates for the industry to make it more professional, to make it more almost fun to be in. So yeah, reach out. We're always open to have a discussion.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Wouter.
Thanks, Louis, for having me.